Spoken lately. I haven't thought about flying for a long time. I haven't dreamed of that moment when I was alone above the clouds for a long time. I have dreamed of waking up in a room surrounded in blue and green grass for more years than I could dream of remembering. I haven't walked back into the past or scratched on the doors of my origins, where it all came from, since I held up that cape for the last time.
Return to Cape Town 10th Year Anniversary Edition is a revised version of Andy N's first poetry book. The book can be purchased from Amazon and it contains numerous additional material.
Spoken Label. Hi, it's Andy N from Spoken Label. Thank you today for streaming or downloading another episode of Spoken Label. Spoken Label was originally set up on beginning of 2016 and as of speaking has currently nearly 300 sessions. The full archive is available on Spoken Label bandcamp.com. Although it is available for free for stream and download if you wish, I am always grateful for any sort of kind of donation to enable me to keep the running costs of this podcast going. And enjoy. Take care. Bye bye. Spoken Label.
Hi guys, Andy N, Spoken Label, back in the house on a Monday evening. Yeah, I'm knackered today after a busy day in work, but never too knackered to chat to a dear friend of Spoken Label. Oh, I've just told her then, I think she holds a record now for being one of the few people that's been on the Spoken Label 3 times now. So I've got the wonderful Sarah James with me today, also known as Sarah Leavesley. Now, Sarah, obviously, if people don't know you, do you want to tell people, obviously, a little bit about yourself, and we'll start from there?
You know, that's the hardest question an interviewer ever asks you. Can you tell someone a little bit about yourself? Yeah, so I'll probably start rambling, and then you can tell me to shut up.
Shut up.
I'm a I'm a poet, a writer, fiction writer, journalist, and a photographer. I think are probably the main creative things I do at the moment. I'm type 1 diabetic, which is fairly relevant to my new collection. And was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 6. So I've had it quite a long time now. I like walking and cycling and just getting outdoors a lot. So that's my spare time activity. And of course that also then, like everything else in life, filters through into the writing.
Yeah, it does. What I always like chatting about you, Sarah, is I know when we first got talking a couple of years ago, I know you sent over to me a couple of your little books at the time. Always Another Twist was the one that always sticks in my head. And that absolutely had me and Amanda cracking for weeks after that one did. So that's why. And that's worth double checking on the previous podcast itself. Now, last time we chatted, we just double checked before, didn't we? It was all the way back in August 2020, which is horrifying, really, because it's been nearly 2 years, hasn't it, really? And we're only just coming out of lockdown now. So it's been like interesting times, to put it nicely. So, but obviously, back in August 2020, just to recap, you bought out, you had a program come out, didn't you? And you got connected onto your website called The Room. Now, I've really, really enjoyed playing around with this program. So obviously, for people who don't know what The Room was, you want to tell people what it is?
It's a multimedia poetry and photography experience, perhaps the way to put it. Hypertext poetry. So essentially you go in, you enter the room on the website, and then through the text within there are different links. So some words are highlighted, and depending on which word you choose to pick on depends on the text that you get next. And that was already previously written, but what happened that year during lockdown was I was lucky enough to get some Arts Council England funding to develop it in this way, so that rather than it being a print book, it was looking at a new way of bringing that to people. So one of the big things that was involved with that was both getting up on the website with all the different links that people could click through on, but also bringing in some photographic elements so that in the center of the page, when you look at it on the screen, there will be the shape of a room, and the shape of the room changes each time, and what's within it changes each time as well. With quite a lot of what I did was like animated GIFs. So they're almost like short videos, but they're actually animated GIFs within in the center of the room with stuff happening in them. And then there was an audio background as well to try and make it as immersive as possible. And that was also.
Yeah. I remember it well.
That was also inspired by living with diabetes. It was particularly the mental health aspects of living with a condition and how that affects your view on life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. That's why it's worth everybody checking out on Sarah's website. And we'll give the details at the end of it, because it's a fascinating program itself. And after this came out, Sarah, I think it kind of makes sense. That's why I want you to tell people about this. What's led next, really, hasn't it, with your new collection, Blood, Sugar, Sex and Magic? Now, was it always planned for you to do a diabetes book after that program?
No, but I think we actually in the podcast with you, we did talk about whether there was a print version to come, and at that stage I'd possibly wondered about doing a print version with the actual text that's used in the in the hypertext project, but both the new collection and the hypertext, everything changes, and both the new collection and the poems in the hypertext project had never started that way. They were part of a longer manuscript which had 7 memoir segments retelling my life in different ways, and that was in prose, and interspersed with that were elements of the room, and there were also some poems in there. So what happened after I'd done the room was the kind of that question of, well, what do I do with the other stuff? Do I try and get this manuscript to work without it, or do I actually separate out? Because mixing prose, the room, which are kind of more like poetry fragments, and then actual poems in one manuscript was quite a lot anyway. So I just separated the strands out, and then added to and worked on that manuscript, which became Blood, Sugar, Sex, Magic.
Brilliant. Yeah. I wonder if we separated it last time. As you say, if we had listened today, shit for brains here, hasn't gone back and double checked the last podcast, but I thought, I know me and Sarah are getting great enough, so we can talk about stuff like that. So anyway, Sarah, then, okay. First of all, then, where did you come from the title for this book?
The title's after the Red Hot Chili Peppers album.
Of course.
And the title poem was, yeah. I mean, it isn't gratuitous use of that, because the title poem does feature their music, because it wasn't my soundtrack, so to speak, but it was a background soundtrack to my boyfriend's at the time's life, if that makes sense. So it was a background soundtrack in our life together, which is where that comes in. And then, of course, from my point of view, actually, Blood Sugar being with the diabetes, it just gave me an interesting title, if that makes sense, to play on that.
Yeah, it does. It does definitely make sense of that. It does, certainly. So that's why. So, and what I really, really like this book, Sarah, and I know this from your previous, I've read at least one of your previous books, probably, I think it's 2 of your poetry ones, is I like the fact when you start playing around the language in your books, because like it's, and I'm not going to ask you to read these poems out, because there's some of them like How to Become Your Worst Friend. That one took me about 3 or 4 attempts to read it, because I just loved all of it where you put like I'm trying to read this in the Tower of Darkness here as well. A star, then a star 1, I think it's star 2, like next to certain parts of it. And for example, with that one, which is obviously page 17 in your book, what made you want to do the piece that way, for example?
I would love to be the first person to have ever done this. but I can't even, because I did one in one of my previous collections, like it basically, for simplicity, a way of describing it, it's kind of like a footnote poem. So you have the main poem, and then you have the asterisks starring off to the footnotes, and then what's in the footnotes, though, aren't usual footnotes. They're actually poetry and part of the poem, so to speak. But when I did that last time, I think I'd kept to the usual footnote format of 1, 2, 3, 4. And in this, I decided to keep the one, obviously in the footnote section, the footnote poem, to keep the 1, 2, 3, 4 in order. But then when I link them back into the text, to have them not in chronological order, so to speak, to have the, I've got 2 appears, then 4, then 1, then 10. I guess maybe this is linking back to the room in terms of hypertext links, choosing the words which would link most to those parts of the footnote poem. And I've now probably confused everyone in trying to explain how it works.
No, I'm sure not. No, but it's like, it's a fascinating book. It really is. Like, I love, like, it's obviously, people know us, I'm diabetic type 1 myself. And it's like, reading this is like, I've got a half-complete book dangling around, which I may finish someday, but it's nothing. The manuscript's nothing like what you wrote here at all. Like, I loved on page 21, for example, as well, where you put, "Listen, the silence is in pain," but then like there's words crossed out in between it, and it's difficult hidden disability. And I thought that's really, really powerful. That's why, and again, like it's a fascinating book. It really, really is, this one, Sarah. How long a book did it take? How long did it take you to write this book? Was it one of those ones that took quite a few years? This was it then, or?
It's one of those complicated questions, in that I didn't set out initially to write it. So some of the poems within it were written, and I'm trying to think when the earliest was back. I think one of them actually I workshopped when I was doing my master's at Manchester Metropolitan University. So that would have been back in about 2011, possibly 2012.
Wow.
So but at that stage, that was a poem that I didn't really do a lot with then. And to be honest, I think I forgot about it for quite a while. And then there are quite a few that were published individually. And at that stage, they weren't a bulk of work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And it was later on, maybe 2017, when I was starting to think about writing about my life in terms of the disability, that they then all started to slowly come together. And there were even some really, really new ones once I had that idea, that came along a lot later than the rest, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, straight away with it, because I think I can say it straight away. Not like I think it's one of those sort of books, really, like, with such a personal topic to you, you definitely can't force it.
Yeah,
that one, because there's an awful lot you can feel like you've lived it. I feel like it's not just a book that's a life. You can see like you've lived each piece itself separately. It's a fantastic book. It really is one of the best books I've read for a while, this one. Now, I've got to ask you as well, on it, I'm curious to know with it as well, where did the quote for Emily Dickinson come into this book? What made you want to put Emily Dickinson at the end of it, to the quote?
See, I'm a bit naughty, because, of course, in books, quite often poets will have dedications at the start. And I do have dedications and quotes from other poets or other writers. And I do have 2 quotes at the start. Oh no, 1 quote at the start, which was from a Shakespeare one, The Merchant of Venice. So that was quite an old quote. And then I just thought, well, how would it be to have a quote at the end? Which is where Emily Dickinson's one comes in. And of course, Emily Dickinson's a much more recent poet. So there was kind of a sense of, for me, of an older poet and a more recent preceding and influencing poet in there. I guess to pay tribute to the fact that there are, and they're not beyond those 2, that one takes one place within, however small one's place may be, one takes it within what's been written before, what will be written afterwards, and all those wonderful poems that are already out there, if that makes sense. And in terms of the substance of the quote, The first William Shakespeare one was that it's about the quality of mercy is not strained, it droppeth as a gentle rain from heaven. And Emily Dickens is the and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. And I think that it was just that those particular two were maybe, hopefully, partly what's reflected in the journey. It's not a straightforward narrative arc, but there is a narrative arc across the collection in terms of the struggles I've had in the past. And I guess coming to some kind of acceptance of the fact that diabetes isn't going to go away. I have got to live with it. And actually that not all of it is bad.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you completely. Like I said, I can understand that myself, where I contracted, obviously, when I was 39. Like, which is very, I know it's quite rare. Like, you usually get it even you're either older, or in your case, I think you're 6 when you got it, weren't you? So I think it's in your book somewhere. It's like, I understand like it's something you get used to. It's not fantastic. It's not great to live with, but yeah, you get around, you get used to it after a while, definitely. So for that one, so not brilliant. Okay, now, obviously, that's pretty well all the questions on this today on the book, really, because I'll be honest with you, Sarah, I just want people to read it, to be honest with you. So it's probably the best way of summarizing it, really. So that's why it does give a really good explanation of the existence of living with diabetes. Now, do you have any ideas of where you see your writing going next at the moment?
I don't know. I'm sure certainly the number of poets that I know and a number of writers that I'm not actually been. The room was a high point in lockdown. I've not actually been writing that much new stuff. I think after a while, possibly being stuck mostly between 4 walls, except for when I'm out in nature, kind of starts to. There's not the natural inspiration. It means you have to go searching for inspiration via the internet, for example, because you've just not got a lot happening in your life. And also, I think for me during COVID, there was a lot of feeling of, well, I'm tired.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
So I've not really written much. I've written bits, and what I do like is that when they come, when it's like that, they are like, ooh.
Yeah, they wanted them as keepers, aren't they? So yeah, not like oh. Yeah, I know what you mean there. So yeah, and the same for us really, because when we went lockdown, because my jobs actually day job sent me home. They did, and I remember this. I don't know if I've ever told you this. They actually told me at the time, ring us up once a week. We're not going to furlough on you. Just tell us you're still alive, and we'll keep paying you. We'll get some work sent to you at home. It took them 7 months. Would you believe so? So like it was, and Amanda's work completely dried up at that point, the freelance work, and it was like it was just an absolute nightmare. It was like it just case I get to surviving really, isn't it? So like and you
I mean, your family,
you trained everything. Your family were probably driving you crazy at the time, probably as well, weren't they? So
actually, that was one of the strange things. Having my sons home from school was actually really nice.
I'm sure they might disagree.
I mean, I hasten to say that that's because mine are, they were in GCSEs, nearly GCSEs and A-levels. Yes, they were in GCSEs. One was taking GCSEs and one was taking A-levels. So we're not talking about little kids. I mean, for parents with children that need looking after all the time and an eye on them all the time, and then not only that, you've got to suddenly teach them, it was a nightmare. So yeah, but because mine are older, it was actually quite nice to have them around, if that makes sense. They're fairly self-motivated in doing their own work, although one of them found it quite hard after a while to have lost the whole socialization of school.
Oh, yikes. I can understand.
But yeah.
It's like that's what it's happened to everybody. This the way it's gone, it's affected people in very, very different ways. This has lockdown, and I agree with you. Let's just hope, Sarah, it helps you, Pete. You can get going again with your writing and your creativity properly and soon. Because I know you've got a few. Obviously, this is going out after your launch. I know you've got a launch out beginning of June, and this is going out. I'll get July, like we said before, to you. But like I said, have you got many other readings coming up with this at the moment? Have you then?
I haven't at the moment. I'm trying to get some, and I do need to get some. I've been there's a lot going on in my life outside of writing, which has been a bit tricky to work around, if that makes sense. Because I don't want to fix dates and then not be able to make them. But I'm starting to look from stuff from July and August onwards, to get some dates on the diary. Then it's just June's a bit of a ironically, June has turned out to be a bit of a hard month. But I'm, again, maybe I'll get some Zoom stuff instead, which is a lot easier because I can fit Zoom in really easily. It's just traveling to places that can get a bit more complicated.
And that's a good way of putting it, that definitely. So so yeah, good luck with it, Sarah, definitely. Because like I said before, I'm not going to keep hammering it on.
Thank you.
It's a fantastic book. Now, obviously, the book can be got from Verve Poetry Press itself, can't it? I can see.
Absolutely.
And I'm guessing as well it's available on all good and evil bookshops as well. And I'm guessing it'll be on Amazon as well, won't it? And all the usual places as well.
I haven't checked Amazon yet. I ought to, but if it's not on there already, then I can always add it as a seller, if that makes sense. So I should get it up on there. But yeah, I mean, bookshops, you may have to get them to order it because unfortunately, as we all know, bookshops tend to have shrunk. Shrunk a lot, full stop, but particularly when it comes to the poetry shelf. So but yes, they shouldn't have any problem getting a hold of it.
Good. Now, obviously, your website is sarah-james.co.uk, because I'm looking at it at the moment, and I'm guessing as well off top of my head, people can track you down on Instagram, Facebook, all the usual places, can't they, as well? So.
Absolutely. I'm on different names. Sometimes I'm Sarah James and sometimes I'm Sarah Leavesley or S.A. Leavesley. But yeah, I am on different platforms. I quite enjoy Instagram at the moment with photos.
Oh, it's great fun. I do like Instagram myself, actually, as well. So it's good fun, definitely. So I said I'm putting some. I tell you what I have found is tip for anybody listen to this. It's the amount of stuff like when I put all my videos or my podcasts like today. They go up on Instagram. You get tons of people listening to me doing it. You can get a really good following off them as well. But definitely with that one. So,
I mean, different platforms, and it's different for me. It's different people on different. Well, it's not totally different people, but it's having different audiences on different platforms is really you're interacting with different people, which is fun. And for me, because I do a lot of photography on Instagram, whereas I maybe don't on Facebook or Twitter. It's interacting with them in a different way as well, which is really nice.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely, and it is really fascinating and good. Like creating different networks as well. It's like you said, you can use your creativity in different ways all the time. So brilliant. Right, Sarah, what we'll do is we'll wrap up this point now, and I want to give you a chance to read out a few poems for us, of course. So it's been a pleasure today, as always. So hang around, everybody. We should be back in a minute.
Spoken Label.
Hi, guys. Yes, Spoken Label. Still in the house. Andy N. Wonderful Sarah James, also known as Sarah Leavesley. So straight over to Sarah now. She's going to do 4 pieces for us. Over to you, my friend.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to start with this one. Listen, the silence, difficult or hidden disability, is in pain. It howls through the brick-top chimney, spits soot, smoke and burnt feathers, hisses from the stone-cold iron, whistles steam from an empty kettle. It punches shadows onto sunlit walls, stuffs fists in our castanet mouths, digs red crescents into now clenched palms, twist pinches lips closed like a bloodstain. The silence says everything that we try to keep hidden. Then, when it's finished, it licks its sticky paws for a minute before sharpening longer claws.
Tremendous, absolutely tremendous. I loved it the way you did that then, because if people obviously look at the manuscript, they can see obviously there's words that are crossed out. I love the way you use them just by speaking them more softly. It really had a good emphasis to that. So wonderful. Wonderful. Okie dokie then. Right, on to number 2.
My still life. Ditch Van Gogh's sunflowers as too loud, too showy. Take Monet's garden, but leave it unmown. Let the breeze blow seeds clear of long grass. Better still, grow a motley bunch of daisies, poppies, and meadowweed, but do not pick them. Watch bees rush to dance in their sticky pollen. Vast, sap stalks dream of rain's soft touch, longing for the quiet music that comes with this. When illness tries to brittle bright petals or dry leaves to thinness, I know that there's still life outside this painter's arid picture. It starts with simple things. I open the window and breathe in the sky.
Oh, I really love that one, Sarah. I really, really do. Are you familiar with any of Derek Jarman's work?
I'm not. I probably should be, but I'm not. No.
Check him out because he was a fantastic painter. He's like a filmmaker in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, and he towards the end of his life, he contracted AIDS. He was living in a cottage he was, and he used to do all these really vivid paintings about flowers and stuff and write about them. And I can really see that in that piece. Actually, I can. Really, really vivid. I love the way at the end of it where you opened the window up and breathed in the sky. I thought that's a great way of like stepping beyond the page and reading the poem. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sometimes it is the simple things that I was going to say. Sometimes it's the simple things that bring pleasure in life, which I think I've come to realise more during COVID than I ever did before.
Yeah, same for us really, because like it's I don't know if I've told you this again because I think I tell people, but like just after I got sent home from work, we were allowed obviously to go out for an hour's walk a day, and Amanda found that it's all fresh and we found it together really. We found this forest at the back of us, and we've been living in this forest all the time when I'm not in work. Like it was big Shepley Woods, and it just goes on forever. And we never used to see anybody. It was fantastic.
Oh wow, it sounds amazing.
Yeah, so if you ever come this way, we'll take you down there. I promise you, right? So you'll love it. So, okay,
fabulous.
Your next piece now, which is my favourite piece in the book. Actually, this next one.
Freshly baked. My hands tired after 2 minutes of kneading. Mum would stretch and knuckle on without stopping, folding in the day's hopes. Though dough stuck to her wedding band, she refused to take it off for this ritual. Promises made were promises kept. Problems turned elastic in her fingers. Her mix would rise to a smooth moon, be knocked back, then rise again. Once the loaf was baked, I'd wait for Mum to declare its golden crust firm enough to slice and eat. Thick and sweet with jam for my sister, or buttered, soldiered and dipped in yolk, bringing warmth and sunshine to the start of each long week. Time has taught me that memories too should be softened and proofed. Not all of my childhood was illness.
Brilliant. Now, I think we talked about this one before, and this is obviously people to bear in mind if you're diabetic. That's why I can really relate to this one, Sarah. So I think that you'd agree with me with this. There's a myth out there about diabetic who's been ill all the time, and it's not really, is it? Like I said, that's why I think this poem's a really good example. You do have a life.
You do. It's an interesting balance between the diabetic side of life and what looks to most people and to some extent is the normal life on the outside. There are still a few things diabetics can't do, but there aren't that many. It just takes that bit of extra preparation and planning and working out how it's how it's most likely to work well, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No,
I mean, I think for me, one of the problems when I look back is because memories tend to be formed from significant things, which is probably why I've got no memories in COVID, because we didn't go anywhere or do anything. That looking back on my childhood, unfortunately, a disproportionate amount of them are linked to the diabetes and the diagnosis, when in actual fact, I know it can't have been the case. It's just that those are only the bits that rise to the top, if it makes sense.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's so. I went for something very similar myself over lockdown, when obviously we had a long spell when we weren't allowed to leave. I wasn't allowed to leave the flat, and it was like, oh, good grief, it was terrifying. It was like getting the stage time. You start climbing, you're in danger of climbing the walls, aren't you? You're just in that same room all the time, and that's why that poem said lots of me there. Sorry, Sarah.
Yeah, no, sorry, I've got the delay on Zoom, which is always interesting. Yeah, I think it changes everything, doesn't it? It changes all sorts of things when you're restricted in what you're doing, how you feel about the world, what you see in the world, what you notice in the world, and some of that's good. I notice things when I'm out walking that prior to COVID I'd never have noticed, because I was just rushing on by, not looking. But yeah, and I'm not the most extrovert person, and I found it hard. So yeah.
Well, I'm massive. I'm a big extrovert. I am. People know that.
Yeah.
Like, it was like it knocked the stuffing out of me a little bit, and it took me a while to get my head back and swing the things again. It just wasn't easy at all. So that's why I can really relate.
But you have.
Yeah. We fight on. I'm a fighter, right? So, and I was saying, yes, you are as well.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. We're on to the last piece you're going to do for us today now.
The woman I must not become. One crack against the side, and yolk pours forth, a liquid sun that sets warm and supple to their hungry tongues. She talks of the sizzling oil, that first summer's sticky heat, his skin glistening on rippled sheets, life's infinite futures. She recalls this as he reminds her that last week she lost her keys, forgot where he worked, and how they got together. He doesn't mention the rows or the days which disappear, with her laughter, her appetite, and her energy. She cries. He cries. The house cries. Every glass surface is smeared by tears. Irony smirks. As a teenager, she'd escape from scraped chairs and slammed doors to the garden swing, flying horizonwards, aware he'd got her back, his firm strength behind her. The sky was uncracked, lit by hope and dreams. But some things are beyond them, slowly spilling. Sometimes, on sunny days, he finds her on their children's swing. He gently pushes her, unsure if they're reliving the past or reaching for a brighter future.
Tremendous. Great way of finishing the set off, that, Sarah. It's a really, really powerful piece, that one. So I got that one. Was that quite a difficult piece for you to write one? It felt like it was quite a difficult one, that one.
Yeah, I mean, there are long-term complications from high blood sugars, as you know, like things like loss of sight and loss of limbs. But there is, when you have low, the opposite, when you have low blood sugars, it affects mental capacity. And I also have a great grandmother who had Alzheimer's. So and when I was a journalist, one of the features that I once did was interviewing someone who was caring for her, I think it was her husband who had Alzheimer's, so the other way round. But that is something that, you know, yeah, it's something that scares me.
No, it's understandable.
Yeah.
I'm the other way around like that. Me and my dad, you know, I've told you my dad's diabetic, but he doesn't have the hypos. Like I crash quite. I've had quite a few bad crashes going too low before now. His are the other way around because the last couple of years he's 86 with that now. And this is general knowledge, this one, people can find this one out. His readings have been often sometimes 3 or 4 times higher than what they should have been.
Yeah.
And that's why they said yeah.
Which is tough because actually, I mean, we talk about long-term complications with it, but certainly I know there is a little bit of stretch. And if it stretches too far, it also affects the present moment. It's not very pleasant trying to do life when you've got very high blood sugar, because you just start to feel thirsty, you want to go to the loo, you feel drowsy. Yeah. Oh, bless. Is he getting good help?
Yeah, he gets lots of good help. He does, because I keep an eye on him, because I know a lot about it. My brother's diabetic now as well, and he speaks to the doctors and nurses every week. Nearly now he does on the doctors, nurse, and the hospital frequent as well. So he's doing great. Thanks yourself. That's why. So, like I say, he's mentally still there. So it's great. Like I say, he's just physically not as good as he was, but you get that stage you are, don't you? So, so anyway, Sarah, we'll wrap up here because I need to chat to John off mic anyway. So, a few bits and pieces. So, it's been a pleasure today, as always. Right now, you hold the joint record with about 3 other people. So,
thank you. I feel really honoured. And it's been lovely chatting. It always is.
Always is, Sarah. Amanda holds the record. People wondering, she's been on 4 times, and two of them before
well, she should do, really. She really should do.
2 of them before we started dating, we were just friends. So that shows you how far back this podcast has been going now. So anyway, we'll conclude here, guys. So, as Don Callis at Impact Wrestling always says, stay safe and stay over. And we will see you all next time.
Spoken, mate.
How to become your own worst friend. Try to reverse time as if to tweak your genes, to wipe out the diabetes. Footnote 2. Unblunt the parts. Footnote 4. You'll sharpen. Footnote 1. To arrows against your heart. The mind you'll use to break anything happy. Footnote 10. Start at the beginning when you aren't even a dream. Footnote 14. In your parents' lives. See? Footnote 7. Already there are eggshell cracks. Footnote 9. In the family you'll spill through. Pain that can't be undone. Note how. Footnote 13. You accumulate. Footnote 3. Bad shit. Tell your brain it isn't a fate. Footnote 6. You could escape. Let yourself say, I'm good enough. It's not my fault. Pretend to believe. Footnote 11. This. The past can't be mended. The past is not yet you. Footnote 12. Stubbornly broken and grabbing for explanations. Footnote 5. That might make sense of the unfairness, though, of course, you'll find none. Footnote 8. Footnote 1. Attack yourself as the body. Footnote 2. Over attacks its own cells. Footnote 3. Substitute your list. Footnote 4. Of personal design flaws. Footnote 5. Footnote well. Footnote 6. Caveat life to death. Footnote 7. Watch closely those. Footnote 8. Who don't like something. Someone. Footnote 9. When all else fails, call it. Footnote 10. Names. Pull it apart. Footnote 11. Piece together instead. Footnote 12. A voodoo doll. prickly with pins. Footnote 13. This isn't the best way, footnote 14, to make a person, life, world, but
Spoken, mate.